I could see it going all the way.
Yeah.
I could see it going to penalties.
Comparable or no?
No.
There's something in the water down there in Adelaide.
So he was actually crowd surfing on the train.
So I closed my eyes, I swung my head and never hit the ball.
Hello and welcome A-League fans to another episode of the A-League's Download presented by Isuzu Ute. All tied in the first leg of the preliminary final, Newcastle and Sydney. What a great game that's going to be going into the second leg. Newcastle the favourites, but Sydney are showing signs that they could be in that final. Adelaide all to play for with that second half goal to go back to Coopers in front of what's going to be a thrilling home crowd against Auckland. A few injuries. We've got a lot to break down of last week and of the week coming. This is going to be a big show. I'm your host, Jake Barker-Daish, and two guys that know all about big games and finals. Thomas Sorensen and Archie Thompson. Guys, we have some blockbusters ahead of us that set up beautifully.
No, it couldn't have been any better. As I said, two draws in the first leg. Again, I think, there's a lot of question marks, but a lot of excitement going into next week.
Archie, did it go the way you expected this weekend with the results?
Well, I thought there would have been a few more goals, but you could see that the home teams know the advantage of their home, having their own first game at home, considering, you want to try to build up a lead, take it to the next ground because it's going to be volatile. Cooper Stadium finals time, there's nothing like it. It's electric, and it can be very intimidating for players to go there. And then also to be able to go to Newcastle. We saw that last match of the season in the derby where it was full. That's going to be amazing. So I would have thought there would have been a few more goals, but both of those home teams started really well. They just probably didn't capitalise on the chances that they created.
Yeah, very well said. And we're going to get into the games and goals just quickly. But around Sydney FC in particular, Patrick Kisnorbo, Thomas, he's done a great job. He's been sort of known for his clean sheets and defensive setup with the Sydney team, playing some young players, some big names on the bench. I mean, is he going to change up how he operates going into this second leg, or do you think he's going to keep pushing the Okons, the Thiago Quintals, and leaving the Arslans and Patrick Woods, if you will, on the bench?
Why not? And I think it's just been, he's small layers he's added to the team. He's come in, he's stabilised. It wasn't like we were talking about, they weren't impressive for the first 4 or 5 games he was in charge. But you can see the improvements. You can see the confidence in what he's telling them. The way he wants them to play. And as you said, he's installed confidence in these young players because, Okon and Kimijo, I think, was immense in that midfield. Again, and to have the ability to bring on Champusano, Lachie, those players from the bench is a huge advantage because that's sometimes the hindrance for some teams in the A-League is that then we have to go for the 17, 18, 19-year-olds. They're in a good position and they've got, a lot of them got finals experience. So they're going to Newcastle. They know what to expect. And Newcastle at home and they haven't really beaten a top 6 team for quite a while since they beat Sydney.
Since December.
Yes, since they beat Sydney, I think, in December. So, you know what? I think there's should be a lot of belief in that Sydney camp.
Well, as we bring up the goals, Archie, the actual performance of Sydney was better than probably what we saw against Victory. They were a bit more dominant with the ball going forward. And this was a massive moment for Stamatopoulos, wasn't it?
Yeah, and you had questions on the marking there, Thomas, didn't you? Maybe Nata needs be a little bit stronger there, but I think for Stamatopoulos to show that aggression, especially in that 18-yard box, was needed. And this, for me, epitomises Newcastle. I mean, they can talk about the goals that they score, but I thought for the first half, especially that 20 minutes, they were under the pump. And I think you can see from both sides what they've improved on. From Newcastle, the start of the season, scoring goals was not a problem at all. Defending was. Now that you can see that they're staying in games and being more resilient in that way. Now you've got Sydney FC that, again, you talked about the performances. I thought they were going to bow out of this final series very, very quickly. But you see what Paddy's doing. Defensively, they're great. Now I was just questioning the ability to go forward in that game against Newcastle. They show they can do it. So, it's going to be an exciting last match. I don't know which way this goes.
Yeah, it's a bit of a flip of the coin, but you do make a good point around some of the improvements. I do want to touch on a couple of players, Thomas, some usefulness, if you will. I mean, they're playing above their years in Paul Okon Jr. and Wataru Kimijo. I mean, just some stats from them. Kimijo had 78 passes at 88%, Okon 71 passes at 95%. and more than half of those were in the actual opposition half. So they're not just playing backwards, they're trying to find positive passes forward, but physically they've been really strong and asserted themselves in these games.
Yeah, and I think that's what you need. You need that combination of the creativity, but also you need that steel. And I think they're coming of age, and you can just see they're playing with that youthful exuberance. They're playing with that energy, and they're positive, and that's all you need. You know what? I think it's brave in some way from Kisnorbo to put that faith in him, but they've showed up until this point that they can carry it, and you know what? I'm looking forward to that second leg because it's likewise at Newcastle. They've got that youthfulness, and it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, it is going to be a great game. Well, it could have been a Sydney FC advantage going into the second game because there was a late penalty shout, Archie Thompson, on Ahmed Arslan, and we're all a little bit split and tired on. Yeah. We think this is the right call, but maybe technically was a penalty. But take us through this because this could have been a really changed the whole fixture.
Yeah, definitely. And this is how I'm going to analyse this bit of footage: is that it's probably a penalty, but I'm glad he didn't get it. Just because you want the game to go to Newcastle on an even keel. Who would have known that maybe Sydney being up 1 goal, that might change the match that goes to Newcastle. But I think you come in at that speed and you don't get the ball and you're hitting the man from behind. It's 9 times out of 10, that's a penalty.
Thomas, that's a fair shout for Sydney to be angry with that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one because he doesn't go into his back. He goes in from the side, but then he doesn't get the ball. And if he just managed to get a touch on it, I'll be all good with it. And but I'm on yours. It's still a grey area. I feel it's not a 100% stone cold penalty, and that's why I like that it wasn't given because there was another one, for the other for Garucho that could have gone. So I think it was a fair shout in some way, but I understand that Sydney will. Feel they maybe were hard done by.
Yeah, and you have to kind of think, how sport always evens itself out throughout the season and out of games. And, being an ex-Victory player.
Oh, yeah.
It was a penalty there. It was a goddamn penalty.
Yeah. Apparently Jason Davidson's shirt's still being
they hang it up and you can see it just like that.
Yeah.
But they were very lucky to get away with that. They probably, with that one,
Yeah, you got to ride your luck sometimes.
Yeah,
it's a bit of karma.
Yeah, no, fair enough. We're definitely going to break down Newcastle's game going into the second leg. But Thomas, I think one of the reasons why we know they're so dangerous is because of their free-flowing attack, the options they have going forward. They're not in a game. They only need one moment, one counter-attack. And this was probably a key staple of that against Sydney because Sydney were dominating and then the ball falls out here.
Yeah, it comes from, Delionov, who's had a good season. And then just the quick counter-attack, but also you can see Eli Adams here. He runs past 2 or 3 Sydney players. So it's all the effort, the belief. I'm still going back to when me and Archie was talking to him after the victory game a couple of weeks ago, and just to hear that belief and everything that's going around the team. They get a bit of luck, but Clayton Taylor deserves that luck because he takes it on and then Eli Adams, and then the celebration as well. The way he sort of stood there, statuesque. I think it's fantastic. It's an attitude, and this team's got attitude, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Well, Arch, I guess we probably thought if it was 1-1 going back to Newcastle clear favourites. They've been great all year. But ultimately, they haven't won a home game since December.
Yeah.
And Sydney have done a couple games now that most people didn't thought, especially the way they beat Victory. The performance against Newcastle in this first leg was so impressive. Are you still as confident as in Newcastle as what the A-League world was, or has it shifted a little bit after the last game?
Look, I think, well, they did have the win in the derby in that last game of the season, Newcastle. So I think they can build confidence off that and also lifting the trophy in Newcastle. But I know that their performance needs to improve from that match. I think even Mark Milligan mentioned that they need an improvement if they're going to try and compete with the Sydney team. If they're going to not have possession of the ball and use their counter, you can't afford too much time on the ball with Sydney, the way that they're attacking at the moment, and they've got confidence. But they talked about the belief, like Thomas said, and they're so resilient in their defending as well. And it will just take a bit of magic from some of the younger players up front, and that atmosphere. It's going to be, I think they're definitely favourites in it.
Yeah, and I think my only worry is sometimes the physicality in those moments. We saw the goal they conceded here. There was a few instances on set plays where, Delionov was flapping. They didn't sort of get the ball cleared too convincingly. And I think that's where, these games are so tight. Like, even though Newcastle have had a great season, it's going to come down to moments. And that's where you just can't afford a bit of sloppiness, a bit of weakness or anything. And I think that's maybe where Sydney will have a slight advantage going into this game.
Yeah, well, I've got to correct myself. Newcastle's last home win was in December, but that was against top 6 teams only. So it's against the top end that they haven't had great home form of late. Just quickly, no Lachie Rose as well on the weekend. That's a big loss. Gibson came in and fought hard, but the real estate of Lachie Rose, they need a play like that to make a difference going forward against Sydney. What I want to do now, though, is put your Patrick Kisnorbo hats on. Arch, we'll start with you. If you're the Sydney FC coach, how are you approaching this second leg? Because we saw the pragmatic version of Sydney against victory, but we now can see that they can go and dominate and put pressure on Newcastle in the first leg. Will they do that again?
I think they will. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't want to change that performance because it was probably their best performance in an attacking sense under Patrick Kisnorbo. And you can see that the way they went at that Newcastle team. And so if I was Patrick Kisnorbo, I'd be going, look, guys, let's stick to what we know and what we're doing. It's working, and those improvements that we're making in that front line, let's continue to do it and really put the pressure on Newcastle, because they really put the pressure on Newcastle. They didn't let them play any of the ball. They closed them down nice and high where they wanted to win the ball up high, so they're immediately on the attack. I think you need to come with that sort of energy and not change anything from that first match.
Thomas, are you changing anything? I've been a part of teams where they've had a set team going into a final, but then the coach has ripped and replaced it with just experience for the massive games and massive moments. And sometimes that works, sometimes that hasn't. Kisnorbo's strength's been throwing a cool Okon on the right wing to go at a Franco Lino and Thiago Quintal playing central instead of Arslan. What do you see him setting up as? Do you think that he's going for this one now that he's kind of shifted his way there in a more pragmatic sense?
I think so. I think he, even when he was at Melbourne City, I think he's a coach that believes in young players. I think if they show him the effort, if they show him the discipline and the tactical knowledge, he's not afraid of putting them in. So I don't see many changes. And I also think the multipliers for a lot of these players, the Quintals, that's in and around the box, Kimijo. I think that's where they're strong. And I think that's where they can do the most damage. Yes, sitting back, yes, they can absorb, but I think that's also where Newcastle are strong as well. So I think you'll benefit more from trying to be on the front foot and try to dominate and try to get Okon controlling the game. And I think they'll do that and try to do it in this second leg.
And Jake, to your question, I'd probably put Lolly in.
Yeah, take that. Yeah, I think that's a great call.
Yeah, if he's
fit,
played, he's played what? How many minutes did he play?
He probably played 60 to 50 across the last 2 games.
Yeah. So if he's fit, I'd be putting him in the young guy. The young guy's been great, but I think with Lolly and his quality and experience, that's probably the only little tinker I'd make.
And I guess we've spoken forward of the pitch or from the midfield line, but Alex Grant, no Tisserand, Popovic and Courtney Perkins have been fantastic as well, so we've got to give them some credit. Just quickly, gents, quick tip then. Who's going through this game? Sydney, Newcastle, in Newcastle this Saturday.
I could see it going all the way. Yeah. I could see it going to penalties. And then, you know what? I could see Newcastle just the wave they've been riding, that they have the confidence to just go in and win it on penalties. I think it's going to be super tight. I don't think there's not going to be one team running away with it. And you know what? I would love to see Newcastle. I think for the season they've had, I would love to see them in a grand final. So I'll tip them.
Yeah, and my head kind of says, look, Sydney and the way that they performed in that last game, the experience. My heart says Newcastle because of the season that they've had and the young guys and, Mark Milligan coming into the helm and completely changing the dynamics in the club, in and around the community, the love back for this team. I mean, it's a story. I don't want it to end now. I think it'd be nice to finish on a good story.
Well, I've got a feeling Sydney FC is going to get this win because they played in front of that frenetic atmosphere at Amy Park and got the job done, and this will be no different in Newcastle. Now, if you were following my socials, you would have seen that I was in Auckland over the weekend. There was a video of me jumping around with some of the Port fans on the way there.
We need to see that.
Which might have been a little bit unprofessional by me, but nonetheless, I was having a look. Well, wait till you see Rashid Lord Mahazi, who's on the show. He was actually crowd surfing on the train. That video hasn't come out yet, but that was definitely a thing. But guys, this was an electric atmosphere. It was hailing in rain. It was 16,000 New Zealanders in the ground. And it was a great first half from Auckland. And you felt like they were going to go on and capitalise and do more. But we'll have a look at this. A couple of key moments in the game, really, from some injuries for Auckland players, which puts a bit of doubt going into the second leg. The first one here was Guillermo Mai with a clearance, which seems to be holding the back of his ankle, maybe his Achilles. He was in crutches at the end of the game. So I don't know if that's as serious as that sounds, but it seems like he's going to be an unlikely one. And then Howson had the eyeballs poked to the back of his head and sort of lost his vision and equilibrium, if you will, and was taken off after this. This changed the game, Thomas, really, for Auckland and allowed Adelaide back in it. Yeah,
it took the momentum out of it, definitely, and gave Adelaide sort of a foothold. And I think Guillermo May, I think it will be a massive miss because I think him and, Cosgrove, the way they've sort of fed off each other, you have that, big man, small man, and has
like us on the couch.
I chested down for Archie. I think that's a big miss because he's been one of the unsung heroes for the season. So we don't know what the extent is. Is it just a twisted ankle and you can get back, ice and treatment over the week? But they play on Friday and they have to travel. Normally if you have a blown up ankle, it's not great to be on a plane. So there's a lot of things that's against it. But we'll have to wait and see because those two injuries, you're looking at the bench, hopefully De Vries maybe can come in and start because I think him and Randall Randall hasn't been the same since De Vries has been off the park. Yeah. They have some, the overlaps and Randall can go inside. So, there's a few question marks for Auckland, definitely, travelling to Adelaide.
Well, one of the question marks going into the last game, Archie, was Sam Cosgrove. We heard he ruptured ankle ligaments, which I don't know if he's defying science to be out there, but he was physically strong in the game, maybe not as alert and electric in front of goal and as sharp as maybe he could be on the ball, but definitely from his stature point of view, it didn't seem to affect him. I mean, how important is that sort of cloud over him? Is he playing in pain, do we think?
Well, like you said, I don't think he looked any different, but the physicality of it, he's still got, and I think that presence you need, especially if someone like a De Vries is going to come in and deliver. You want someone big like Cosgrove, and if Germain is out, you lose a bit of something going forward. But yeah, I thought Auckland were really good in that first half. They
Lachie Brook, he was exceptional. We'll bring up his goal now, but he's so important. You love him.
Yeah, I love the way that he plays. He's so great on the ball and he's comfortable and he scores goals and they were probably lucky because there was a couple of good chances for Adelaide that they didn't take early on in this match, and then with football it ebbs and flows, but Auckland probably should have taken more advantage of the possession and the chances they had, especially in that first half. But you never write off an Adelaide team because I thought what Auckland did really well was they stifled a lot of the balls that went through the middle of the Adelaide lines, which they like to do. That's something that I've been really impressed with Adelaide's football is once they get a turn in that midfield and they go through the middle and then they open up and then
they're through.
It's great to watch. They didn't have that opportunity to do that because Auckland are right on them and they blocked all those passes. So I think it'll be an interesting match. Adelaide will be different at home. But I just feel like Auckland missed an opportunity to take a good advantage.
Yeah.
Archie makes a great point, though, Thomas, around if they get through those lines, or even from a counter-attack point of view, the electricity they have. Let's have a look at Yaya Dakuli burn here, Hiroki Sakai for the Harry Crawford goal. But that's exactly what Archie's talking about as well.
Yeah, that's getting players into space, and then you got those one-on-ones and Crawford, lurking at the back post. That's where they're strong, and I totally agree with you, because if you can shut down that midfield, they can't get these balls. If you can start dominating midfield, and as soon as Adelaide gets on top and gets in easy positions, they've got those players. They got them at plenty, and then you got Jovanovic coming back as well. So it's Anselmo, him who's starting. So they've got options up front, and at Cooper's. It's going to be rocking.
Sam Cosgrove could be in for a bit of grief from the fans.
I don't think he cares. I think he takes it as
he
a
likes
challenge.
it. Yeah, it could be a good thing. But got to say, Yaya Dakuli, that ball and his turn of pace there, that was of world-class level from him, which got Adelaide back in the game. We got a fan question here quite early in the show, but this is from sp.visuals on Instagram. Does Harry Crawford's work rate go under the radar? He's only 19 years old, one of the names that doesn't get spoken about a lot, but was voted man of the match on the weekend. So, he's clearly an exceptional talent.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to see, because we're like 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were talking about Burkett came in and made a difference. Crawford's only played a couple of games, and has made a difference. So there's something in the water down there in Adelaide. They keep bringing in these players, and the main thing is you can just see exactly what the question is. They've got the work rate, they've got the attitude, they got the belief. Sandroli, he does a great job with these young players. The development that's going on behind the scenes, that they look ready when they come in, and it's great to see a young player coming in and make a difference on such a big stage. Yeah,
well, it probably feels a little bit more like Adelaide have the right to go and win this now, going back home with a 1-1 draw with a couple of the injuries they have to Auckland. We're going to get into how Auckland's going to have a chance to break them down. But Archie, I just want to go into Adelaide's home form. They're going to have a sellout crowd. They've got the best home form in the competition. They've played 13 there this year. They've won 7, drawn 3 and lost 3. So they're pretty convincing at home, as you know, going there and playing in finals. It'll be a packed house. But Thomas begged a good question there with Jovanovic coming back in and Anselmo. We saw Anselmo starting for periods before Jovanovic was suspended and Jovanovic coming on. What do you think Angelli does here?
Oh, well, it's a tough one, because they're two different types of players. I think I would probably like to see Luka Jovanovic start. I'd like to see that change, because his football has improved this season. I've said it many times over the season, is that his all-round game, in that he holds the ball up, gives the ball away, doesn't give up possession like he did in previous seasons. He's scoring goals. He's always a threat. I think he has a moment when he's in positions to go, okay, maybe which is a better option to take. I think that game of his has improved. So I would like to probably see him start. And you're talking about Cooper Stadium. I mean, I played so many times there over my A-League career with finals football, and not even finals football, because the rivalry that we have there. That place is when it's jumping, there's no other place, I think, in Australia.
I tell you,
who's more intimidating.
Who might be giving you a call this week is Sam Cosgrove, because you would have been copping some flack going out to Adelaide for a decade, and now he's going to be in your shoes.
Yeah, good. but it is like I've been a fan of the Adelaide team this season, and the way that they play and that atmosphere that they have. It's incredible.
I don't actually think, and I don't know if I agree with that. I think with regards to who's going to start, because I think Anselmo would probably be the better early option because of the physicality. If Adelaide are sitting back, just to have that, and it was a perfect example against Melbourne City, a couple of weeks ago when he came on, when the game opened up, he found his space, and he's so great in the box. But on the other hand, I think he needs a little bit of space, to really, be at his best. And, I think I'll probably start Anselmo.
Okay, well, there you go. That was a question from Hempenstall on Instagram as well. Who starts at Cooper's, Jovanovic or Anselmo? We've got a split on the couch.
Yeah,
I think
I agree with that.
I think they will start Anselmo. Also, the problem with Jovanovic taking off his top in the game that he did, it means he missed 2 weeks of football because they had the week off and also this as well. So it's almost like his third week back. I think that's probably why. But for the Auckland fans out there that might be nervous going to Cooper's, we understand why, but never fear, because the Reds are yet to beat Auckland. in any game. They've played 4 draws and 1 loss. So you actually got the better of the Reds going into their game. If we have a think about how Auckland set up, guys, I saw Craig Goodwin at the airport coming back and thought, all right, great result for Adelaide. And he goes, yeah, well, he probably thinks that they're going to come and shut up shop a little bit and make it really difficult for Adelaide, which does make sense. I mean, knowing the recent history, Thomas, how do you think Auckland will set up? Because we know they're a very physical and direct team, but with some of the pieces they may be missing, could we see a bit more of a defensive style from Steve Corica?
I think it's going to be very measured. Is it going to be park the bus? That's maybe a little bit of an exaggeration, but they'll definitely be mindful of shutting down the space. They'll be mindful of getting tight to these, Adelaide players, and then be patient with their chances. They're going to get some chances. They're going to get, if De Vries is playing whoever, they're going to get long throws into the box. They're going to try to challenge the back line of Adelaide and will get their chances. Yeah, I think they'll be cautious, especially maybe, quieten down the crowd a little bit, trying to get a foothold in the game. So, but park the bus, I still think they'll come there to play.
Yeah, I think Archie, you might agree with me, but I think for Auckland, if they're going to win it, it's going to come through Randall and Lachie Brook. Those guys need to. Lachie Brook's first half shows exactly why they can beat anyone anywhere, and Randall, as Thomas alluded to, has probably been a bit quiet. But if they get him going, I'll get your tips going into this game. But just note this: we spoke about Newcastle's recent form, but Auckland are the best away team in the comp. But their last win was away against Newcastle, which was, coming up to nearly 2 months ago, right? So factoring in all of those thoughts, what are we thinking out at Cooper's on Friday here?
I think, it depends on the injuries and who's fit and who's not for Auckland. I think they need everyone on deck. You know what? I've got to. It's such a tough place to go.
Really tough, man.
It's a really tough place to go.
You called this out before the finals from a Melbourne City Cup point of view, trying to avoid Adelaide.
It's probably the team that has the best home advantage in the league. Great atmosphere. I played in myself. So, and I would, maybe as a purist, I would love to see an Adelaide, the Newcastle final, because I think that's going to be blockbuster. But, you can't count Auckland out, as you said, with the form. But I probably will say Adelaide.
Yeah. Archie, what are you thinking?
You said it perfectly. I think Adelaide. I like the way that they play their football. And like you said, if they're missing some of those key players for Auckland, that just stifles them a little bit going forward. And I just think that their quality and their passing, if it's on song, I don't think any team can compete with this Adelaide side.
Yeah. I think it's a trifecta on the couch here. We're all going Adelaide in the fixture on Friday, which is going to be a packed house at Cooper's. Now, we went back through the season. We thought there were some incredible goals this year, but we've picked out our best. We might even throw in a save of the year from Thomas Sorensen as well. But, Archie, there was a lot to choose from.
Yes.
Eli Adams, though, was one that you struck a chord with. Yeah. Tell us why.
I mean, the way there was probably a number of goals that he scored this season that I would go, okay, that's for me the goal of the season. The way that he hits this, I don't know. You're a goalkeeper, Thomas, ex-goalkeeper. Look at that free kick. I mean, that's.
Yeah, like the wall. I'm not too sure on obviously everything else, but take nothing away from that strike. I know how. That's how it reminds me of that iconic goal of Ronaldo against Portsmouth, I think, where David James was just standing there. Yeah. It has that, and I know how hard it is. You can say you keep on this and that, but the movement on the ball and the pace, you only have a split second to make a decision, and even if you do make the right decision, the ball still flies past you, and that's, I got huge respect for players that. They've practiced it. You know how many hours they've spent on the training field to perfect it, and then to deliver it in a game. Great to see.
Patrick Kisnorbo will be telling Sydney FC as well. Make sure the fouls around the box in a one-off game. This guy's been dangerous.
You know what? Because it's happened a couple of times where you could almost. As watching a game, even the commentary is that like when there was a foul just outside the 18-yard box, you could even almost see the opposition of the Newcastle just go, "Oh no, we're conceding this."
Yeah, correct.
Because he's really that good.
Yeah, but also the one thing is even if he strikes from long distance, it's so hard for the keeper to control the save, to catch it so it's also the second balls. Yeah. So you just hit target, anything can happen. Like any second balls, tap-ins, just make sure you got players in there.
Yeah, well said. Well, I ended up having the next choice, and I chose a man that has become famous in this league this year, Juan Mata, because not just for this incredible finish, but this finish also went global and was a campaign for the A-League. This was in the derby. Juan Mata, the ball falls loose, and he does what he does best, capture the opposition out when they're not ready. Wonderful technique. He's just parked this over Patrick Beach's head and made him look quite silly in the end, but it is an unbelievable finish. Thomas, I mean, that is a bit of a goalkeeper's worst nightmare, but also nothing you can really do there.
You just know you're running back for no avail. But again, it's the quick thinking. You know, he's running towards it. You know, like sometimes, you know, you would love to get into the head of a player, because that is genius to actually see the opportunity. Because it really arises quite quickly. It's not like the ball rolls for 20 yards and he's got plenty of time. It sort of just pops up and he hits it.
Yeah.
And then to have the technique and the ability to make it happen, I think it sums him up.
Yeah. Well, next up is Lachie Bayliss against Wellington, Thomas, and this felt like it was almost in the first 30 seconds of the game.
No, it's an important goal in an important stretch of the games, and just the way he takes it inside. You know, he does everything himself, just the abilities in small spaces, and this is an unbelievable strike as well. So I think that everything that went before, then the strike, I think, makes it definitely one of the best goals of the season.
And that's why they're so dangerous, because the players like Lachie Bayliss, you can't not think of anyone's a threat there, Archie, can you, in that team, because they can all do it.
Yeah, and this is where Sydney FC need to be really strong in the way that they defend. They can't allow any of that time and space, because of how many times we've seen this season that Newcastle score absolute bombs, or they can make stuff happen. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, save this even, Thomas. What have we got? There was a few options, but you landed on.
There's been a lot of great saves.
I tell you what, you can't not say you're a balanced pundit, because you were, wouldn't say critical, but you were sharing views of Dalianoff earlier in the season that he could do better. And you've rode that wave with him and given him the plaudits, but you've also given him save of the season as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things that go into a save. You know, there's obviously whatever how spectacular it is, but there's also the importance, and this is, he saves the game. You know, they're winning 2-1, and then the little cravat is that it actually Lawrence Thomas that heads it.
I couldn't believe that.
And that is probably the worst thing that could happen in any keeper's. It's the other keeper to actually score. There's no bigger humiliation. I've never tried it, but I always used to in games. I always have a game within the game where I was, I'll be trying to beat the other keeper or have a better game than the other keeper, and that would be a total humiliation if the other keeper came up and scored either on a penalty or there. But it's a fantastic reaction.
Have you come close to going up and?
I was close once, but I actually thought I had scored against Chelsea. I came up, I ran towards the front post. Ball was perfect. I was there. And typical, I wasn't. So I closed my eyes, I swung my head, and never hit the ball. No. What happened? Cudicini actually got his hand just in front of me and punched the ball away, and I was like, what happened?
No.
That's the closest I've ever been. Maybe I saw the celebration.
Yeah. Oh wow, that would have been some story. Goal against Chelsea, but his eyes were shut, and the keeper got there before him. So
exactly.
Reality struck for Thomas Sorensen.
Yeah.
Hey, the Ninja A-Leagues, we are at the pointy end, and when I mean that, the grand final is going to be played this Saturday afternoon, 4:50, Wellington Phoenix against Melbourne City. Now, we know game one for Wellington Phoenix against Brisbane Roar. Wellington had to overturn a 2-1 deficit, which was played in Brisbane. The second leg was in Wellington, and Wellington did what they did best. They got the win at home. They're very, very tricky to play at home. This was their biggest crowd this season, 6,000 people in Wellington. Michaela Woods with a double here, and she's been exceptional since she's come in January for Samba. 7 goals and 5 assists in her 14 games, Thomas. She's going to be a real problem for Melbourne City's back four going into the grand final, isn't she?
No, she's an X factor. She's obviously come in as a substitute, mid-season, has made a massive impact. But she's got the pace, she's got that physicality, and they've got some experience. Stott at the back there, so they'll have to watch every single run, and as a defender, you then got to play with a little bit of a margin against Woods, because she's got that pace and showed it in this game. She made the difference.
Archie, just as a striker, I mean, some of those runs as well off the shoulder, the gambles, the taking the risk. We saw the second one pay off with a mistake. I mean, that's a bit of a nightmare for defenders to defend against, isn't it? That's something that I know you used to always do. You're always making runs constantly, and you might not get it 9 times, but that one time you're on. Yeah. And she seems to have that.
Well, this is probably the most important run she's made because she doesn't give up on the ball, and that's why I think with some strikers an absolute nightmare to defend against, because that they're going to challenge absolutely everything. So you can't make a mistake because you know that they're going to pounce. And Michaela did on that occasion, and she puts her team into a grand final. And it's just amazing to see where this club has come from. Like, it's the second, third year in the competition, and to be able to recruit and get the best out of the girls and. Has just been absolutely amazing.
It was a first grand final for
in either competition.
Oh, wow.
So congratulations to the Phoenix. Yeah. I'll tell you what, Melbourne City, they were pretty comfortable against their games against Melbourne Victory. They performed really well. They kept a clean sheet, 1-0 across both legs, goals to Letitia McKinnon in the first leg. Archie, this one from, I think, 18-year-old Shelby McMahon was a hell of a strike, if you pull it up. But the ball was bouncing around Thomas's Melbourne City, looking to get the stretch, and then this one, Arch, was brilliant.
That's just such a sweet hit. I mean, the technique to be able to hit that on the ball coming down from such height, she had to time that perfectly. And you have actually mentioned, Thomas, about this girl's quality, that it won't be too long before we see her in around that Matilda squad.
No, I think she's a great prospect. Obviously this showed her, technical ability, but her work rate, I think she was well involved, in that midfield. So, it was 2 professional performances from Melbourne City. I don't think it was, unbelievable in any way, but they're a solid team and they just get results. And Miras, the goalkeeper, has been in great form. So, they've McNamara, they've got difference makers. And then if they can get a couple of the young players to step up, it's going to be a tight final at AME Park at the weekend.
So you see just the key battle, though, is that Michaela Woods, that getting in behind is the real stretch for them?
I think if Melbourne City can keep her quiet, I think they'll win. But I think that's the X factor that perhaps Melbourne City hasn't got. Yeah. So that's where I'll give Wellington a little bit of an advantage.
That must hurt him.
And I'll be going to the finals, so I'll be wearing my Melbourne City scarf and hoping, for a City win. But I think it's going to be a tight final.
I'd argue it's been one of the best Ninja A-League seasons yet, with the quality goals, the performances we've seen. So a massive good luck from the A-League downloads to both Wellington and Phoenix. Melbourne City, as I said, 4:15. That'll be playing at AME Park this weekend. Now, audience questions. We know it's the pointy end of the men's and women's seasons, but we've got some great questions coming in. Every Sunday you'll see it up on the A-League stories to ask myself and the panel some questions, and boy, do we have some pearlers today. First one, Tom, is going to be with you, a bit of a goalkeeper question. This is from Andrea1380_S on Instagram, in brackets for Thomas.
Okay.
So, I mean,
perfect. Yeah.
No, go figure. But where does Josh Smits, Adelaide goalkeeper, for those that don't know, rank among the best keepers this season? We don't speak about him a lot, but he seems to have done okay.
No, I think he's done great. If you look at it statistically, he's right up there with, obviously Devilish Mears and you got Redmayne, who I think has been really good, but I don't think he's far off that. I think he's been consistent. I think that's what you want. He's experienced. I think, that Adelaide side, we talk about all the young players, but sometimes you need that, a little bit of an old head in the team, and I think he's provided that. So, he's in my top 3. I think he's just been steady all the way through, and probably maybe overtaking Patrick Beach as the season sort of progressed in my book.
He's very commanding, but he's also got a calmness about him too, which is important for a young sort of defence.
You can see, one thing is, we always judge on saves and all this, but when you watch the games, you can see his leadership and you can see, you can see the rapport he has with the defenders and how they respect him and that sort of, that means more to me as a goalkeeper, and it's that sort of unseen that I feel that that definitely helps that back line of Adelaide.
Now, this one might bring up some PTSD for Archie Thompson, but this is a great question. Fletcher Walpole on Facebook. How does this Newcastle Jets side compare with the previous famous A-League teams like Roarcelona, Arch? You mentioned it before, but they were a hell of a team.
Yeah.
Comparable or no?
No. Nah. Not... I don't think
You can just see the nightmares.
it's
It's the only team he had to really run against off the ball
mate.
at a ridiculous amount, wasn't it?
As soon as you said that, my eyes started going. Because that's all you used to do. Going, like,
Where's Partaloo?
Partaloo was okay because he couldn't move. He just, but it was everyone else that was running around him. You're kind of going, okay, he's out. So I don't know if they're gonna. I don't think any team's gonna. Be able to reach the level of that Brisbane team with the way they play football. But you know what? You win stuff, and you continue to win stuff. You can. But from a football point of view, I think they're a little bit off. But it's still great to watch this young team play the way they're playing beyond their years. I think the difference is that maybe that Brisbane team had a lot of experience, whereas this one is young. And so if they can maybe stay together, you might start to see that, but then, with so many young talented players, you want them to be able to go on and sell them and make money. So I think they're a little bit young to be compared to them, but you win stuff, like I said, no, you can maybe.
Well, I know we've given out tips because that's our job for this weekend's game, but the real theatre in these games of the weekend is it's pretty hard to know who's going to win, isn't it? And that's a beautiful thing about the A-League and these games. So I think we're in for some blockbusters. Which one do you think is going to have the more sort of rile and news coming out of it, would you say?
It's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. I could see... I think it's going to be tighter in Adelaide than it is in Newcastle. I could see goals like from Sydney as well. I could see more goals in that Newcastle Sydney game. So that's probably for me is going to be the biggest blockbuster. But who knows?
Arch, which game are you going to be more excited to watch in your eyes?
Gee, like I said, it's a hard one.
We've been surprised so many times. We sit here and it's like, whoa, we didn't see that.
That's right.
I'm a fan, like I said, of Adelaide when I hope that they play the football that they can play, and at a level that we hadn't seen all season. If they do that, then I'd love to be watching that one and going, okay, Adelaide going to make a grand final. But then that game, Sydney, Newcastle. I mean, Newcastle probably didn't perform like we like normally see them perform. Sydney are starting to, tick some boxes I didn't think they were able to.
At the right time.
Yeah, so mate, it's just a perfect weekend of football like we've pretty much seen this back end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let us know in the comments who you've got. Is it Adelaide or Auckland, or is it Newcastle and Sydney? Who is going to be playing in this A-League men's grand final as we keep an eye out on the Ninja grand final happening this weekend. We thank you for all your likes, comments and support across the A-League's Download Show. We've got a few more weeks left to cover this weekend's games and, of course, the grand final. Until then, though, we'll see you next week.